So my last video showed the overheating I was having on my Volvo Penta 5.0 GXI-J model engine for my chaparral boat. And in looking at the temperature and where it was having overheating problems and where it was still cool, it appeared to me that I wasn't getting water up through the water pump and thus up into the thermostat area, because the thermostat itself was overheating. That and the fact that there was no water exiting the boat anywhere showed me that it was most likely just an issue with the impeller being bad. So I have taken off the impeller, which once it comes off, it looks like this. It's pretty simple to take off. All you had to do was take off these 4 bolts that look just like this, using a little socket wrench, and came off pretty quickly once I detached the 2 hoses from it. That's a 5/16 socket on that ratchet there. So here's what the old impeller looked like. So it's safe to say this was definitely the problem. The thing is torn to pieces and it's having all kinds of issues. Definitely missing some pieces off of there. You know, not really even making contact in some places. So definitely wasn't getting any good suction in there. So I pulled it out, just pried it out of there a little bit, cleaned the inside up, put some soapy water in there. And I've coated the new impeller in soapy water as well, which I got through a kit thanks to Stay Cool Pumps on Amazon. $63 for a full rebuild kit with the stainless steel bearing. I don't believe I need a new bearing, but I'm going to go inspect that in a second here with this camera and see what the old seal looks like. And if it looks like it's in okay shape, I'll just skip the bearing replacement for now. But we'll see. Now, to get this back in here, we'll go ahead and do it because we're ready for it. Taking a picture of the old one, this is basically how it came out. So we can see that the spines are rotating, being pushed to the right, which means that this thing rotates going counterclockwise. So we're going to put it in there using a counterclockwise turn, and that should do it. So again, we got the soapy water on here to help lubricate it a bit. As we go in there, we'll turn it a little, give it a little bit of a turn, as to help it get down there without going out of rotation too bad. There we go, looks pretty good, right? So that's the rotation we want to be in for all the spines. And that bad boy is pretty much ready to go. We just need to seat the the O-ring in there. And I'll have some soapy water on the O-ring as well to keep it lubricated as we fit it and tighten it. But that's pretty much going to do it. It's got a clean surface and she's ready to go with some soapy water in there to guide her first few rotations. And I'll put some more into the hose itself in a few minutes. So now I have placed the O-ring right around this part right here. I'm just pushing it in a little bit. I had some soapy water on it. Pushing it in with my finger to make sure it gets all the way in there and sealed. And then I'll just place the impeller on top of this, slide it on over the crank there, and we'll be good to go. So I thought that was going to be much easier than it was, and it was quite difficult to get the impeller holes matched up around that to where they screw in on the other side. So you've got to match up this and this correctly, and they're not evenly spaced. There's basically three that are separated by the same distance, you know, with this one in the middle, this one and the one on the bottom is the same distance away from it. There's one that between those two tubes over there, and that one is a little further away from this one and the one on the other side. And so you have to figure out by looking at it as you spin it around where it fits, get it aligned, and get this thing. There's a little guide bar here that goes through here. Get that slid in there, and they've got to apply some pressure. I actually wedged a big stick in here and used it to push pressure to slide this on, because it didn't slide on super smooth. So you got to push some pressure to get it out there and get it close to the holes so that the actual bolts will go in there and attach. But once you do that, it's not so bad. I would say around these bolt holes, there's not quite enough room for a ratchet. You know, the ratchet end to actually wrap around it all the way on this one specifically. So it was kind of odd and weird. Maybe it was just my ratchet set's a little thicker, but you know, hopefully you don't have that same problem. I imagine, you know, a lot of people take the whole pump off to service them. I don't know if that's easy or not, but this definitely wasn't what I would call easy to align. It would be much easier if it was off, if the whole pump assembly was off and on a table or something. But I got that in there. I put some soapy water in the top hose, which is the hose from the transom. The bottom hose there is the hose that goes up to the actual thermostat here. Comes up here, I believe right here. And then I believe this hose is where it exits to the block. And these two hoses are where it goes to the two different exhaust manifolds separately. So when I did the initial temperature reading, this was about 200 degrees, which it shouldn't be if it's getting water, if it's getting fresh water, I should say. So that was definitely a problem. The manifolds were also reading about 200 degrees after a few minutes of sitting. So they, you know, the manifolds, the thermostat, all that was warmed up, and that's what caused the alarm I had. These pipes here were about 160 or so, which meant it was just hot air coming through there. They weren't burning up, but they were definitely getting warm. I don't think there's any damage there at 160. I wouldn't expect, at least. And then down there below, those, you know, with 60-degree water supposedly coming in from the faucet, those two hoses down on the bottom, the intake from the transom, from the lower unit on the top, and the outgoing from the impeller to the thermostat block up here, those were like 80-90 degrees, which, you know, warmer than it should be if you're getting fresh water for those as well, considering that should have been coming straight from the transom from the hose itself at about 60 degrees. So I definitely just wasn't getting water sucking up in here. I wasn't seeing any water exit anywhere, and so I think we've properly diagnosed this as an impeller issue. I'm going to do a test real quick with the earmuffs on, but I'm pretty sure everything's going to be okay. We put the hose in here and flushed both the intake, you know, from the transom, and we put the hose into the outgoing hose that goes up to the thermostat. When we put water in there, we saw, well, first of all, in the transom one, we saw the water come back out where the earmuffs attached. Those lower unit input, freshwater input sources. So the water was coming back out. So there's no blockage in there, we don't believe, on the input or the ingress from the water. And then outgoing to the exhaust into the engine block, we saw plenty of water coming out, both kind of at the transom there where it exits, and also through the exhaust area on the lower unit. So you know, definitely saw what we were looking for there in terms of the water escaping and not being blocked on the outbound as well. So feel pretty comfortable that once we get this thing turned on here, that it's going to suck water up like it should and spit it back out at the right place this time. And hopefully that will wrap this thing up. Back on the order this week.